All right, people, this is live. This is my 7,000 subscribers live stream. Greetings. Okay, I need to share it, I guess. I'm waiting for your questions. So I don't have much time, so it's not gonna be like a 1 hour, 2 hour stream, just a short stream, all right? Yeah. Okay. My opinion on the Russian Communist Party is, well, it's not as powerful and it's not what it used to be during the Soviet Union times. And a lot of people call it revisionists, which I can partially actually agree, since they are more of a Russian nationalist than internationalist right now. And it's not like classically Marxist anymore. So yeah, the Communist Party of the Russian Federation is good, but I just don't like the most recent tendencies in the Russian Communist Party. The Communist Party of the Russian Federation is that many of their members are now openly collaborating with people who are, frankly, are the fifth column for the Atlanticist powers. Yeah. But other than that, it's a decent party and it still has a lot of seats in the Russian State Duma. Yeah. And on the previous Russian parliamentary election, I actually voted for the Communist Party in 2011. Yeah. All right, I'm waiting for more people. Oh, 3 people already. 4 people, that's good. That's great. Okay, guys, so first I've got to tell you what I think about Russia selling the S-400 missile systems to Turkey. Well, I don't think Russia loses much, and I think it's more good than bad, because you see, some of my fellow patriotic Russians are concerned that NATO may get a hold of the Russian missile missile technology, and no worries, because Russia is already Russia has almost done developing the S-500 system. So, and not to mention that Russian export weapons are basically nerfed, toned down versions of it's not the same that the Russian army has in service. So no worries on that. But The very fact of Turkey buying a Russian SAM system, it actually creates a lot of divisions within NATO countries. And how could I dislike that? I mean, come on. Like, the United States, they are mad. They just hate the fact. They're just so butthurt over this. And they refuse Turkey to deliver their and they refuse to deliver the F-35 jets to Turkey, the F-35 project in which Turkey is heavily involved financially. And you see, guys, but why Erdogan needs the S-400? What has he to fear? I mean, well, he will probably try to solve the Kurdish question with force, and the United States would try to stop that. So Erdogan and the Turkish army might use the S-400 to to defend its ground forces. Yeah, mainly the fact that it's just so, I don't know. 20 years ago, it was Russia's allies divided and almost conquered. But now it's NATO. But now Russia is causing divisions into NATO. NATO gets the taste of their own medicine. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about the chat. So what is my opinion on Limonov and the other Russia party? Well, those people are good. I actually agree with some of what Limonov says. And but the personality of Limonov himself, he has been widely marginalized. Not many people trust him. And the other Russia party, it's basically a socialist nationalist party. I don't think it has chances to win against the establishment Russian parties in a parliamentary election. But overall, I agree with many of the things they say in their program. Yeah. All right. What's my thoughts on pan-Slavicism? Well, I am actually a bit of pan-Slavist myself. It actually has always been a dream of mine to build a Slavic sort of Slavic alliance or Slavic union. It does not necessarily have to be a unitary, like pan-Slavic or Russian-dominated superstate. It probably should be some sort of confederation, or maybe just some NATO-like or Warsaw Pact-like Slavic alliance, or should I say, or Eastern Europeans alliance, should have sort of Warsaw Pact 2.0. But it's again, it doesn't have to be like super like Russian dominated, because many of the people in Slavic countries, especially in Central, West Slavic countries and places like Croatia and Bosnia, their nationalists, their patriots fear that it's just going to be like Russia ruling everything and Russianizing Russifying everything and blah blah blah, all that stuff, all that phobias. You see, what I would love to see is a pan-Slavic confederation where Russia is the military powerhouse, and it's like militaries with the Russian militaries of the members armed with Russian equipment, some sort of counterbalance to NATO and to the EU. Slavic counter, and not just Slavic. I think Hungary and Romania, countries like Hungary and Romania, maybe even Greece and Albania, but I don't know about that. But still, it's some sort of Eastern counterbalance, some sort of Eastern Bloc 2.0, only not communist Eastern Bloc, but like, should I say, moderately nationalist, conservative Christian answer to a counterbalance to the decadent EU and NATO. That's what I want to see. And of course, economic union, like economic cooperation between Russia and other Eastern and Central European countries, and even with some sort of Russia, Eastern Europe, China axis. That would be fine. That would be fine. But once again, it does not have to be a Russia-dominated, some sort of pan-Slavic superstate. I think many of the patriots and nationalists in Eastern European and Balkan countries would staunchly oppose such a superstate. Yeah, so that's what my thoughts on pan-Slavism. Oh, not too many people are watching me. All right, CD13. Next question, maybe. The stream is not going to be that long. I'm warning you. That's a tricky question, you know. In a sense that, well, what do you define by socialist nationalists? Well, basically, if we're talking about economical perspective, in economics, I am more on a sort of socialism, state capitalist positions, because I don't actually believe in the free market, the free of the market, the free of the people principle. Sorry, we have been through that in the 1990s, and it brought nothing good. Well, some may argue that the 90s in Russia were not real free market capitalism, it was crony capitalism, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to say that I am more on a socialist state capitalist position economically. And nationalists, well, kind of, yes, I consider myself actually a moderate Russian nationalist. Moderate in terms that I don't think of other nations populating Russia as inferiors. I would certainly not stand for like big Russian ethno state, and I would not stand for secession of other nations from Russia. But in terms of pride of my nation, of my culture, yes, in that sense, I am a Russian nationalist, but not much in the racial sense. Now, don't get me wrong. I absolutely detest what's happening in Europe, what the EU is trying to destroy their countries with mass immigration from the Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa. I am against that. But on the other hand, I also oppose I think the migration to Russia proper from the Central Asian republics should be limited as well. Yeah, so in some sense, it is fair to characterize myself as a socialist nationalist. Yeah, Oh, Sivan Balsi. Hi, I know him. Hi, my friend. So, what's my thoughts on the so-called Navalny poisoning? Okay, to be completely truthful and honest with you, I don't know much about it, but given the personality of Alexei Navalny himself, he is a, a big liar, and he has proven many times of posting fake news. So I think it is just another like fake news story to make Russians look bad. Yeah, that's pretty much what I think. And it really, and speaking of Navalny himself, it really puzzles me why doesn't Putin put him in jail yet. I mean, what's the point of keeping him free? He's roaming free, and he's trying to start tensions. He's trying to create another. He's trying to move Russia on the Ukraine scenario, like drive Russia. But I don't know. Ukrainian scenario is my nightmare. I do not want that to happen. I'm ready to do anything to not to actually prevent that. Fighting on the streets with AK to prevent Ukrainian scenario in Russia, hell yeah. So that's pretty much what I think of Navalny poisoning stories. I think it's just fake news to make Navalny just makes that up to make himself look like a martyr. All right. So, CD13, thank you. What's your opinion on Pan-Arabism and Baathism? All right. Um, Pan-Arabism in itself, it's not actually that bad. First of all, Pan-Arabism is a secular nationalist ideology. Well, the first Pan-Arabic experiment, as if I recall it correctly, was a United Arab Republic. Well, when Syria and Egypt unified their states, and they waged war when they waged war on Israel, but later it dissolved. But still, Pan-Arabism and Baathism, I think, if you want my honest opinion, I think they are the only way to keep the peace in the Middle East. Secular, nationalist, socialist ideology. When Iraq was under Hussein, under the Ba'athist party, it was pretty rich and prosperous nation. Same was for Egypt under Nasser, and but Libya is not Ba'athist, but still, I think Arabs should stick together. If they are divided, they are easy prey for divide and conquer for the Atlanticist predators. When you're divided, you are weak. When you're united, you are strong. Sarez 0220. You think Turkey will exit NATO? All right. So could be it may exit NATO. Maybe not in this decade, but maybe in the next decade, in 2020s or maybe in early 2020s, it might exit NATO. But the question is, will the US let it go? Will the US let Turkey go? Because you see, Turkey controls strategic Black Sea Straits, and Turkey is the US, the second US aircraft, unsinkable aircraft carrier. It's another ally, crucial ally in the region, just like Israel. So let's say if the US loses Turkey to Russia, then the Black Sea becomes a completely Russian-dominated internal lake, and it would be a catastrophic failure of the U.S. geostrategies to let Turkey go away from to break away from the U.S. to let Turkey break away from the U.S. influence. But I think Erdogan Erdogan is a very ambitious man. He actually a neo-Ottoman man. He wants to some sort of revival of the Ottoman Empire in some way, shape or form. He's a Sunni revivalist. Some people say Erdogan is a pan-Turkist. I don't think Erdogan is a pan-Turkist, but he is some sort of neo-Ottoman Sunni revivalist. So I think Turkey might exit NATO. It is a possibility. Sylvia Frank, you are good. Oh, thank you. Tensions are rising around the Persian Gulf. What do you think will be the Russia's position in that question? I think the Russian position in that question will be largely neutral. Why? Because Iran, it all starts around Iran. The Western power, the US, UK, want to provoke Iran. But if there is going to be a war between US, UK, and Iran, it will drop the price of oil, and which will benefit Russia. So I think that Russia will, of course, diplomatically, and maybe we will support Iran with more weapons and more equipment, military equipment, to help to fight off to help fend off the Israeli and the US UK aggression. But I don't think that Russia will actually fight and send soldiers to die for Iran. Because Russia, it might sound very cynical, but Russia could actually benefit from the West, the Israeli, UK, US, Iranian conflict. Yeah. But I don't think that the West and Israel will attack Iran. The stakes are too high, and Iran is no pushover. They risk of getting their asses kicked. I mean, the Americans and the Israelis. Do you think America could say civil war next, or do you think it's unlikely? Well, actually, CD13. I think there is some sort of cold civil war is already going on in the United States. But will the cold civil war in the US escalate in the hot civil war? Well, we shall see. We shall see what happens in 2020 in the next United States presidential election. Because you see, I heard the latest news, and the Mueller investigation, the Mueller report proved to be basically a nothing burger, and, and the Democrats have failed. They are not impeaching Trump, and Mueller has failed the Democrats. All they have to do now is just to resort to calling Trump racist, sexist, homophobe, blah, 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 whatever Eastophobe they call him. But they might take their revenge in the 2020 presidential election. Because if Trump wins there, again, like second term, I don't think the Democrats will let him get away with that. They're going to start something more serious than street protests. So we shall see what happens after 2020 election. Or ACD13 wire. Oh, well, probably because of different communist schools. Western Marxists are the Western Marxist thinking is dominated by the Frankfurt School, which is basically cultural Marxists, while Eastern communists more of an economic Marxists, who are which I prefer more. I prefer the Eastern Marxist school more than Western, but still, the Western Marxist school is dominated largely by Trotskyites, Trotsky idea, while Eastern communists is more like a Lenin Stalinists, such as leaders such as Enver Hoxha, Stalin himself, basically. Ojanis Santana, hello. So difference between Eastern and West. Easterns are more Stalinists, while Western Marxists are Trotskyists. Oh yes, we have. But Celia Frank, yes, we have another interview planned with Joaquin Flores. I'm trying to contact him. He seems to have been banned on Facebook again. But yes, we are planning another interview with Joaquin Flores, and the subject is going to be Mueller investigation, because the last subject we covered was the millennials. What's your opinion on Yuri Bezmenov? Oh, Yuri Bezmenov is a KGB defector from the Soviet Union. I'm sorry, I don't know much about that man. I don't know. I'm sorry, I have to do more research on that guy, on Yuri Bezmenov. Chancellor NW, do you think the UK will break up after Brexit? That's a complicated question, man. You see, Scotland and Northern Ireland, Scotland and Ireland, they may cause some problems for the UK too. But to me, it seems that the UK might preserve its territorial integrity, although Scotland may try another referendum to break away from London. So we see how it's going to play out. What are your thoughts on? Okay, my thoughts on cultural Marxism, that it's the bad interpretation of it's I think it's a wrong bad interpretation of Marxism. Cultural Marxism is a stream that I dislike personally. Classical Marxism is economic Marxism. And I think people should stop voting for left-wing parties and stop them in order to stop them from coming to power and ruining your countries, Western countries, again. What I think is that the Soviet Union had nothing to do with the Frankfurt School, and it was created to counter this, to create an alternative left-wing thinking to what the Soviet Union represents. That's I think why the Frankfurt School was created. Soviet communism was different. It was way more conservative and focused on economic issues rather than cultural issues. Of course, the Soviet communism was still internationalist, but it was more conservative. Why do so many Western liberals love socialism? It depends really on what you call socialism. Socialism is state ownership of all means of production, social programs, and well, liberals basically advocate for more state regulation, but they don't advocate for complete dismantlement of capitalism. What liberals love is more of like a social democratic and social democratic policies, and more regulations, more excuse me, Chancellor. Now, I think the case of Scotland, the English believe Turkey and Greece are another each other throats, especially around Cyprus, and also the age and risk of war in Greece. Does it make any headlines in Russia? Thank you for your response. Okay. Yeah. In case, well, Scotland is still very dependent economically on London, and how it is going to be like live without London, I don't know. Chancellor NW, yeah. Turkey and Greece are each other's throats, especially around Cyprus, and also in the age and risk of war in Greece. Does it make any headlines in Russia? Honestly, it does make some headlines, but at least while Turkey and Greece are still members of NATO, I don't think anything serious will happen. Yes, there will be some border provocations from Turkey mainly, but I don't think that anything serious between Russia and Turkey is going to happen. Yeah. Thank you for your response. I found it to be independent from classical Marxists since they think they want to destroy every identity from it. Yes, it pretty much sums it up. But classical Marxists, but the cultural Marxists seems to destroy identities. Yeah, identity politics itself is cancer. Honestly, why would you? Why would? Why would you question your identity, who you were born? Like you were born straight, white, male or female or black or gay, or I don't know. You do not want to mess with your identity. What are your thoughts on Freemason? Or in other protests that they had in Moscow promoted by the West? Or is it... Obviously, the protests in recent protests in Moscow are obviously promoted by the West, because when I see the names like Lyubov Sobol, Alexei Navalny, and their tactics are very, very similar to what's happening in the Arab Spring, in Euromaidan in Ukraine, during the Euromaidan protests in Ukraine. The tactics are so similar, and the slogans are even very similar. So I don't think it's a coincidence. I think the recent protests in Moscow are absolutely promoted and controlled by the West, and it really bothers me, for another reason, is that Putin had a massive crackdown on NGOs in Russia. So how do they get their funding if the most of NGOs are closed? It's still a question to be solved. What do you think of non-Marxian forms of socialism? Well, the non-Marxian forms of socialism have the right to exist, and they should be practiced. But basically, non-Marxian forms of Marxists say that Marxists themselves say the Marxian forms of socialism are the only forms of socialism, and Marxists do not recognize any other forms of socialism as socialism. But I think non-Marxian forms of socialism, they actually might work better. Other protests. Yanis said, I want to hear your thoughts on Russian people. I remember, but I think there are a few Anglo-influenced Russian degenerates. Janis Santana. Yes, there are Anglo-influenced and Western-influenced degenerates in Russia, but they are not much of the problem since they are an absolute minority. And they are mainly in big cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg, Yekaterinburg, but even there, they are still a minority. Look at the recent protests in Moscow. Only 3,500 people attended the Moscow protest, and the Moscow population is 15 million. So I don't think that the Western influenced people are much of a threat. Chancellor and W. Sylvia have noticed that the Freemasons are becoming more and more irrelevant in business. No one gives a damn anymore. It used to be for promotion moving ahead, not anymore. Well, hard to disagree. And even conspiracy theorists are not talking much about Freemasons. It's like, obviously not talking about people like Alex Jones, obviously not talking about people like Alex Jones but still, Freemason kind of disappearing from the discourse. Excuse me. What are my thoughts on mutual and national syndicalism? I'm actually not an anarchist. I'm not a fan of anarchy or anarchist thinking people. So, yes, Navalny has no foreign policy statement. Well, his foreign policy will pretty much repeat what Gorbachev and Yeltsin were doing when they ran Russia. Navalny's foreign policy will be basically a continuation of what Yeltsin were doing. Janis Santana, okay, thank goodness. Oh, well, yeah, yes. Well, except maybe Ukraine. Ukraine actually submitted to. Ukraine actually succumbed to the propaganda. But other people, other nations who are like, I like what Poland is doing. I like what Hungary is doing. They are Eurosceptics. While Ukraine actually, I think Ukraine was way too naive. So they kind of were allowed themselves to be brainwashed by Western propaganda into hating the Russians. But I think Ukraine will sooner or later come to their senses. I still believe in that Ukrainians will come to their senses and will return to their Russian brothers, to loving their Russian brothers. Cartman 1138, what's your opinion about people from Poland? As I've said, I like what historically or right now. Well, historically we have been enemies with Poland and we had a lot of wars. What they're doing right now, I actually like that. They are not completely subservient to the EU. They're showing their muscle. They're showing that they have balls. They adopt laws that triggers the EU. They don't let in massive uncontrolled third world migration into Poland. That is good. And they are fed up with the EU LGBTQ bullshit. So yeah, what I think of Chancellor and W, do you think as a whole, thanks to modern media, we have become more homogeneous? We are more alike than ever before? Probably yes, thanks to modern media, but there are a lot of alternative media, and are you talking about the mainstream media that make us more homogeneous, yeah? But I think the level of education, not just in the West and not just in Russia, but all over the world, it has dropped from the previous times. That's why more people people more seems more alike. Who do I see as the next president of Russia? Oh, sorry. I think Putin did the right thing to. Yes. I also think Sevan. I also think that Putin did the right thing not to listen to Dugin, because Dugin actually proposed to invade. You see, that is the thing. That is the point. If Putin did send troops to Ukraine back in 2014, like after the Crimea, they could have just marched straight up to Ukraine and straight up. Russia had all the capabilities to do that. But if Putin did that, I don't think the West would take it kindly. I mean, they would have introduced a lot of sanctions, and they would. Russia would have experienced real isolation, like sort of not just Obama's type of isolation, but the real isolation, like North Korea, Venezuela, Iran style. And not to mention that a lot of Ukrainians were already brainwashed by the Euro dream. So I don't think Russian troops would be welcomed there with open arms. A lot of Ukrainian people who were brainwashed by the Western propaganda, would have started guerrilla warfare. What do you think you see as the next president of Russia? All right. So who do I see as the next president of Russia? That's a great question. That's a good question. There are some possible candidates from Mr. Putin's inner circle. If you want me to name names, like the most popular name in the Russian patriotic blogosphere is Alexei Dumin, who is a governor of Tula region. He is the governor of Tula region, and a lot of politicians and political analysts in Russia, they suggest that he is going to be the next president. Okay, moving on. I don't have a lot of time left, maybe 5 minutes more. What are your thoughts on National Socialism? I know Russia may have negative opinion of it based on the history. Hitler attacked USSR before he free Bolshevik. Oh yeah, okay. So what's my opinion on National Socialism? Well, Ojanis Santana, I guess, you're right that National Socialism has a lot of negative connotation because Hitler invaded USSR. Okay, I give you that European countries were scared of Bolshevism. And yeah, what I think is that National Socialism as it was practiced by the Germans, by the Third Reich, it has negative connotation. But I don't know. Maybe if Hitler didn't invade the Soviet Union and if he wasn't so paranoid about Bolshevism, like, I don't know, maybe I would have changed my opinion on that, but it has too much negative connotation in Russia. Sorry. What are your thoughts on? I'm talking about the net in particular. Yeah. Okay. What are your thoughts on Tsar Nicholas II? Well, a lot of people are still debating about him. Some say that Tsar Nicholas, well, no doubt that Tsar Nicholas was a saint. He was a saint martyr who perished for his faith, who perished for his country, and he was innocently killed by the Bolsheviks. But during his rule, I think he actually made quite a few critical mistakes. If he didn't make that mistakes, that maybe a Russian Empire would have been preserved. What are your thoughts on that? How long will Boris Johnson last? 4 will be in a general election that he can't win. I don't know. Boris Johnson, he's a very interesting. Boris Johnson is a very interesting and a very funny personality. Okay, even if he loses, I don't know. Well, isn't it obvious that Boris Johnson is basically Donald Trump's agent? He will last long, I think. Thank you. Good stream answering questions. That's okay. I like to hear your thoughts because the West is negative about Slav Germany and the US is. Well, yeah. The West has a lot of negative propaganda about USSR and Nazi Germany. But recently, I see, especially in Central European and some Eastern European countries, that actually people are starting to talk more. Some people are starting to talk more positively about the NSDAP, Germany, and Hitler in general. And there are documentaries such as The Greatest Story Never Told. So I think propaganda against and a lot of people in Europe, especially in Germany, are becoming increasingly dissatisfied with the current politics of the current European rulers. So I think that the popularities of far-right leaders of the past, such as Hitler or Mussolini, will only rise, despite the official propaganda. Full agree, Boris. There is something the UK think we are heading for. Maybe you're heading for 51st state, but Boris Johnson is. Maybe if he loses, regardless of he loses or wins the election, the UK is still going to be very dependent on what the US does. So I think that the whole I honestly think that the whole Brexit story was actually to make UK more closer to the United States, and to actually isolate it from what's happening in the European Union. European Union and the UK have a lot of. The UK was always historically clinging more to the United States, especially after the British Empire collapsed. So the EU and the United States have their own differences, but the UK says no. We are with the UK elite says no. We are more with Washington than we are with Brussels. Ohanis Santana, yeah, I hope so too. It's really time for East and Western Europe to put aside its difference and work together for a better world. But the main Russian issue with that is that we do not want to be a junior partner. Okay? We want to be at least as important and equal to Western countries, and we have to put our differences aside. And I am all for support for cooperation with the West. But let's be honest. I want more conservative, more patriotic, and more traditionalist Western Europe. That's the Western Europe I want to cooperate, or Russia wants to cooperate. I'm sorry, but this postmodernist abomination has got to go. Europe has to return to its roots, to its Christian, to its European roots. Now, that doesn't mean we should start burning witches and execute gays and completely or to expel all of the non-Europeans from Europe. But still, Europe should remember its Christian roots. Yeah. This postmodernist abomination Western Europe has become today, it has got to go. Yeah. Chancellor and the British Empire didn't collapse. We just handed it back when we were realized that the well, the British is still the British Queen is still kind of head of state in Canada, Australia, and yeah, I agree with you that the British Empire didn't really collapse, but still, Britain is not the superpower it used to be. It kind of became more dependent on the United States and 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 the British Empire doesn't pursue independent policy as it used to be. Europe absolutely. Yeah, Ohani Santana, I absolutely agree. Europe needs to bring its roots. Absolutely. The globalist, postmodernist abomination, it has got to go. Do you follow NFKRZ, Roman? No. NFKRZ is actually, he's a funny guy, but sometimes he says things and he talks about things he doesn't understand. But put that aside, and he's actually a really funny guy. I like some of his videos. Hannes, have you? Of course I had. Of course I have. And I would like to have a discussion. Moreover, I would like to have a debate, actually, a debate with a person I disagree on some, not fundamental disagreements, like, but on a person to debate on the person I disagree with. I would like to have that. I would like to have a discussions or even a debate with with other channels. I made interviews with Joaquin Flores. I made interviews with Georgian Patriot, George Patriot in 1998. A great guy who is debate Eric Stryker. Okay, if he agrees, of course, if he has time. Eric Stryker is a popular personality on YouTube. Bold and bankrupt. Orim 280, Orim 280, 298. Who are bold and bankrupt? I'm sorry. Forgive me forgive me my ignorance, but I don't know who those people are. Is it a YouTube channel? Are those people bloggers? Do they have a Facebook page? I'm sorry, I've never heard of bold and bankrupt. Is it a one person or two people? I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna do a research. I'm gonna look him up, and I'm gonna see what he's doing. And yeah, I might just do a collaboration with him. Oh yeah. Chancellor and W. Christianity in terms of church attendance. Yeah, yeah. Do you think it's a lot down to the fact that we're working longer, less social hours? Yes, it's also down to that, but I think the main reason, the key reason is that people in the West are becoming more and more atheist and more and more decadent and hedonistic, and they're constantly in pursuit of material goods and and carnal pleasures, and they think less on the spirit, and they leave less time for their spiritual development. Spirituality, you have to have faith. That's how humans are. We need to have we need to develop our spiritual side. Yeah. Okay, guys, it's been almost an hour, so it's already late here in Russia. So yeah, it was my like first, or I don't know, it's maybe my first or second, no, it's my first live stream on my channel. I'm sorry, but I will do more streams in the future. Yeah, 30 seconds left, and I am ending my stream. Anyway, guys, I thank you all a lot for clicking on my live stream. Thank you, everyone. I hope my answers helped you to shed some light. Yeah, thank you. Bye. So yeah, expect more streams, more interviews in the future. Bye.